Besides the structural and linguistic elements previously mentioned, the sense of loneliness, despair, and resignation that Arnold wishes to convey to the reader can also be seen through the extremely heavy use of anaphora and alliteration throughout the poem. Um, uh, in the second stanza, besides that as well as with echoing straits between us thrown, using the passive voice, it immediately brings up this idea of the this body of water that's separating the islands being the result of some sort of agency, or and hearkening to the last stanza of the poem, in which God is directly addressed as the reason for the suffering of mankind and their loneliness. And alliteration is seen on line 3, dotting the shoreless watery wilds. Line 4, we mortal millions live alone. And moving on, anaphora can be seen in lines 8 and 9. And they are swept by balms of spring, and in their glens on starry nights. And on line 11, and lovely notes from shore to shore. And this particular emphasis on the dual nature of the islands that are separated by these bodies of water in line 11, and on lines 8 and 9 in the second stanza, it also puts more emphasis on the islands, and as previously mentioned, with the pronoun ambiguity on the fact that they are directly experiencing something, despite the image of an island as an unfeeling, passive, inanimate object, which is a typical romantic device in order to give agency to nature. Further examples of alliteration can be seen in line 13, oh then a longing like despair. In line 18, oh might our marges meet again, which puts particular emphasis on the last line as well as the exclamation mark. And in line 20, should be as soon as kindled cooled, although this is only perceivable auditorily given that kindled begins with a K. 21, who renders vain their deep desire. And then anaphora can be seen again in order to answer this rhetorical question. A god, their severance ruled, and bade betwixt their shores to be. The use of imagery in different stanzas also heightens the particular atmosphere that Arnold is trying to produce in the text. For instance, in the first stanza, words such as adjectives, in fact, dotting the shoreless watery wild, we mortal millions live alone. So the words shoreless, alone, and clasping, and endless bounds are used in order to describe a sort of infinite sense of negativity, or whatever connotations that the word alone would cast on it, which are presumably negative. Whereas in the second stanza, more positive natural imagery is used in order to describe the communion of different people, and in part of this extended metaphor to describe how despite this separation that people experience, there can be a divine transfer of knowledge and understanding between different people. When the moon their hollows lights, hollows is of course a negative, dark sort of image, but swept by balms of spring, glens on starry nights, nightingales divinely singing, lovely notes from shore to shore across the sounds and channels pour. The word sounds and channels pour, of course, is highly assonant. But then, although these two stanzas are connected, there's a rapid change in atmosphere. Oh, then a longing like despair to their farthest caverns sent, and then it's a callback to the previously mentioned hollows and darkness and concave indentations of the soul. For surely once they feel we were parts of a single continent. And On this last line, "Oh, might our marges meet again," line 18 on the third stanza, particularly is a shift to wistfulness for the past and foreshadows the reference to the fact that there was in fact a time in the past when humanity was unified and when we could understand each other and when our metaphorical marges made us part of a single continent. But in fact, we were severed by a flawed deity. In conclusion, in the Victorian, Romantic, and Modernist struck context of this poem, Arnold writes this poem that's ostensibly romantic, meant to address his feelings to this woman of Marguerite, who he is unable to ever fully pursue a relationship with, but in fact is addressing a wider audience of the world and is written against the idea of a benevolent God and heightens the transition of poetry from a romantic collectivist range of thought to the modernist individualist style, and a questioning of social norms and a questioning of religious norms, even imagery that is typical of romantic poems. For instance, in line 8, "And they are swept with balms of spring, and in their glens on starry nights." And in line 15, "For surely once they feel we were parts of a single continent." Now, islands can't feel, of course, so this is another example of anthropomorphization through the use of pronouns.